everyone. Welcome. I want to go over some quick tips and pointers for your Chapter 3, Exercise 3A activity. For Chapter 3, you're going to start really getting into what GIS systems are all about, which is looking at relationships. And honestly, this is a very, very important concept and the bread and butter, if you will, of GIS systems, which is you have a question, or for instance, here in your textbook for this activity, you have this scenario, and you want to look at these different data sets and try to pull out if there are relationships, and especially in a visual way. And so I really like that they approach this with that scenario in mind. So to begin, as you read over, it'll again set up GIS and this concept of looking at relationships. Then they give you a little bit of an example of something here that's been set up, this interactive atlas. And then we go down and they introduce the data that we'll be using. Now, there are lots of different types of files and data sets that are associated with GIS systems and programs. And while there's a little bit of variation from program to program, it's good to learn the generalized file types in data sets. So when you're approaching a new problem or a different program or a different data resource, you have some general ideas and file types that you can look for. So for this particular activity, we're going to be starting in our folder of our downloaded material. And we're going to be looking in the health study folder, and we're going to be looking at some of the data there. Okay. And you'll see we're going to use a shape file, and shape files usually have the extension SHP. Okay. And we're also going to be using some spreadsheets, databases. In previous exercises, we were looking at the attribute table, all right? And these are usually a DBF. And again, it's the actual text data, if you will, that many times our maps are based on. A shape file is more of an actual geometric or physical aspect. It could be a series of roads. It could be the boundaries of counties or states. All right. The other type of file extension that you will see and is mentioned here is APRX. And APRX is the general file or ArcGIS data file that we've been using, kind of our, our project files. All right, so to get started for 3A, you're going to find your GTA folder and that health study folder, and you're going to open up health study APRX. So when you go to ArcGIS, okay, again, there are some different ways that you can open things. If you start from that very first menu, you can open it that way. You can always go into your maps and take a look at things there as well. And then up here at the very top, these little icons, remember you have new, and then you have open. Okay. So here I can go through my computer and find wherever I saved that GTKAG Pro, our data. Okay, you want to find that folder and open it. And then once you find that folder, you want to look for health study. And then you want to find that health study APRX. Okay, and when you open that, you'll come to a general map. All right. And once you have that, you want to make sure that the Explore tool is active and you can click anywhere in North America. All right. Here's my Explore tool and here's my Map tab. All right. And now in the catalog pane, you're going to expand the health study data folder, and you should see a number of shape files. There's the DBF file. There's also something called a layer or LYRX file. But for now, we need the US CNTY or US County shape file, and we need the obesity database. And you're going to hold the control and click both of those files and then drag them to the map display. So over here in our catalog, we're going to click on the folders. We're going to click on the health study folder, and then we're going to click in the data. All right, so now I've got these open. I'm going to click on this first one. I'm going to hold down the control key on my keyboard, click on the second one, and I'm just going to drag them over here and let go. Okay, and now it adds the data. Now you'll notice here my data came in as pink. In the textbook, here it looks tan, and yours may be a different color. Remember, the colors are assigned randomly. It goes over a little bit later how to change the color, but again, you can always click over here on our contents panel. You can click on the little symbol. It pops up our little symbology here, and you can click right up here on properties. And there are some other ways to do this too, so you can easily change the color. Okay, and again, it'll go through that later on as well. But now we've got our shape file, and we've got our data table. So now it tells you to open up the layer from the contents pane, click the data tab, and click the attribute table. And again, there are sometimes a couple of ways to do this, but we click over here on our contents panel. We click to make sure that it's selected in blue. And then up here, you should see data. We click on the data, and then you should see over here the attribute table. We click on that, and again, now we can take a look at all of the wonderful data that is in this particular table. It's always good when you're working with shape files to open them up, open up the attribute table, and take a look at what's really in there, because all of these different columns is information that we could use and do something with. All right, so now it's going to ask us to close that back up. And now we want to only look at the state of Illinois. This is going to be a very important skill. And in fact, a lot of GIS is taking these data sets and asking questions about the data set and then trying to look at just that question. In GIS, we don't really use the term question as much as we use the term query. All right. And again, in chapter 5 and later chapters, we're going to work with these concepts more. But for now, we're going to select a feature by attributes. So we're going to use that attribute table. Now, this is where, again, it's mentioned throughout the textbook, but we'll mention it again. Sometimes what you see on your screen is not always going to exactly correlate with the textbook. The software is continually being updated and upgraded, and so sometimes things look a little differently. And again, usually it's still there. You might have to click a little differently. Sometimes the buttons change, but you should always be able to do things. So for this, it says on the Map tab, open the Select by Attribute tool. So we go back here, we click on the Map tab, and then you should see over here, we have our Select by Attribute. Now, this is what pops up for me, and it definitely looks different than what's popping up here. For instance, here you'll notice it says expression. There's no expression defined, and it says to click New Expression. Here, if we go back and take a look, you'll see it does have the input rows, which popped up. If you hadn't seen that, you could have clicked on this and then clicked on here. We leave the new selection alone, but you'll notice now I've got this. So I don't click on New Expression. Instead, where it says Where, I click, and we want to do State Name. Now, how did I know it was State Name? I go back here. If I scroll down a little bit, you'll see right here, it does have the Where, and the state name is equal to Illinois. Okay, so again, I come back here, is equal to, and then I can type in Illinois. Do watch if that doesn't always pop up. That is one of the biggest errors a lot of times people have, is they misspell things. So that's often when you send me a screenshot, one of the first things I try to look at. All right, so we have this. You can click on apply or okay. And with the color I've chosen here, it's a little hard to see. Let me actually go back. But if you take a look, you should see that I have my Illinois here is kind of highlighted here a little bit in blue. Okay, so now we have just that area selected. We've made our attribute query. Okay, here you can see. Now we want to export the selection to a new data set because I don't want to look at the rest of those other areas. We just want to look. So in the contents pane, we're going to select that US County shapefile. And then from the data tab in the export group, we're going to click the export features button. So we make sure we've got this selected. Then we go up here and find data. Then we find export features. Now, again, this comes up and it looks a little bit different than what you see here in the textbook. Okay. So let's try to decipher this. It says in the geoprocessing pane for input features, select the US county for output, for input. Okay, that means where's our info coming from? And for output, we're going to, it says maintain the default location, but change the output name to Illinois. Okay, so what this means, I'm just copying this, is that here you can see in this, it has input. Now here it says output location and it just says health study GDB. So it's going to this health study database. And the output name is where we put the Illinois County. Okay. If we go back and look at mine, we see the input features, but then we've got this output feature class. Okay. So click here and it'll pop up actually the exact place, and that's what I'm kind of showing you right now, where this is being stored. So it is being stored in the GDB, but do you see this last back-end place here? Okay, that's actually what it's going to name this new data set. Okay, and basically, if you look at this whole thing here, it's showing you right now that it's in the health study, and then there's this slash. Anytime you see a backslash like that, it means folder. So it's in health study, it's in our GDB, right? So all we need to change is that last bit. We want to leave the rest of this alone. All of this right here is the equivalent of this right here. And this output name right here, every time I go out, it changes it until I say, okay, is what I pasted or changed right here to the right of the last slash. Okay. And it's actually telling me where all this will be saved, but for now, it's fine. So I have this and I click on OK. It's going to run, and then it exports the features. And the way you know you were successful is over here on the left. I now have this new Illinois county, which is this one right here. Okay. Now it says remove the old shape file from the map contents. And you'll notice here, remind me how. We right click and remove. So I go back here. Now I want to get rid of this one. This is the new one we made. I want to get rid of this one. So we click on it so it's highlighted in blue. We right click and then we left click on remove. And now we have just Illinois. Okay. And you'll notice that they say change the name of the map name to Illinois. Okay. So we'll come back here where it says map. All right. I double clicked on it so you can change it here. Okay. You could change it by right clicking on it and going down to properties. Sometimes if you click on it once and click on it again, now you'll see it's in a little kind of highlighted blue, and I could change it that way and press the enter key. So there are lots of ways to change the name, but we've changed the name of the map. Okay. And now it says if you want to change the color, it reminds you how to change the color, how to change the symbol. And again, this is a good review, so you're able to do it yourself. And so now we've got this. Okay. You want to save the project. Okay, so you click on save. And now you need to send this to me before you go on to 3B. And again, the way you can do that is if you go to share map, you'll come up here, you'll see it says package map. We want to save the package to a file. You could upload it to your ArcGIS online account, but we're going to save the package as a file. This is where it's going to save to. So I click on this little folder so you can choose where you want to save it to. I'm going to put it in my GIS folder here. And for the name, I tried to keep the name with my last name and what it is, but we'll save that. Then we click on package down here and it'll go through, successfully created. And now if I go to my, excuse me, if I go to my computer, go to classes where I saved it, I have in here somewhere my Stratton exercise 3A, and this is the file that you could then attach. Okay, so that's it for our exercise 3A.